My name is Anna Muniz. I'm an educator here at the Newark Museum of Art, and welcome to Painting with Pancakes. This is a part of Community Day Art Extravaganza. Today is a day totally devoted to art and the weird and wonderful ways we can all create art. So this morning we are joined by the Children's Museum of Manhattan, where we made edible portraits. Check out their video on our Facebook page if you missed it. But right now, I'm excited to be here with Dan from Dancakes. They're the first name in professional pancake art. So today they're here to create artistic pancakes live. So please welcome with me, Dancakes.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Dan, we're really excited that you guys are here. I see that you have a nice surprise for our guests. And so we're ready for the big reveal. We want to welcome you from.
Yeah. Let me, I gotta release it from the Griddle here. Probably about 30 more seconds on this.
All right.
But we're very happy to be here. We're thrilled to be a part of this and excited to make some pancake art for y'all live and maybe demystify some of it. So cha-cha, let's make it happen, right?
All right. Some of the first things that we wanted to talk about a little bit is about your company and the process, or how long that this art making has been going on.
Yeah, that's that really is the be all end all question. We get that at almost every event. You see somebody in the corner making pancake portraits at a party or something, and you're like, okay, how did this joker get into this? Dancakes as a company got started as sort of an accident about almost 7 or 8 years ago, when I started out as a fry cook at a diner here in our hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. And I was just making weird smiley faces and stuff for better tips. And in November of 2013, it kind of went viral. I ended up on national TV for it. And since then, the company's grown. We actually have a couple of full-time artists with us here in St. Louis. One of them, Ben, is actually helping me manage the stream over here. So you might hear him chime in here and there.
I will be your disembodied voice for the evening.
And
hi, and now I'm gone.
And we've grown the company, and we travel around the world. We've been on we've managed to get on things like Hell's Kitchen and the Kids' Choice Awards and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it all just started as a side effect of this diner day job, like a breakfast jester. Which, by the way, I'm about ready to flip this. Y'all ready to see the first one? Let's see how it turns out. Let's see if I'm off to a good start here. Bonk.
All right, check it out, everyone.
Hey, it's a logo.
Welcome you. All right, thanks so much. This is amazing. This is incredible. We are so excited for all of the different types of artworks that we're going to get to see here, especially our logo. It looks delicious. My first question is, what are we going to make first? That's beautiful.
Well, from what I understand, there's a popular little character that we're going to kick this off with. We got some art stuff we want to do, like some fine art stuff, but
first we're going to start with the highest.
Got to start with the highest form of art here, and according to my list, that would be Baby Yoda. I think is Baby Yoda is I hear it's what all the kids are into these days. So
you heard about this?
Have you heard about this? Right before the stream started, Ben and I were actually joking about the fact that I am this. I live under a rock, so I actually haven't watched The Mandalorian yet. But I've made Baby Yoda hundreds of times, so I know all about it.
Yes, you have to make the effort to get on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Or just borrow a friend's password. Let's be honest here.
I have to be honest. I just binge watched the first season. And so I have not watched the second season.
Isn't it good?
It's so heartwarming, and it's just like the sweetest. I don't know, like everyone is like really invested. You could see the characters are really invested, and the director and producer, the same guy from Chef, and what are the other films he does, like all of the
John Favreau.
John Favreau.
I mean, he did Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man, but he also did Swingers and then like Chef. Yeah, I mean, he still does a bunch of small indie movies just because he can. Uh, I mean, he did Swingers way back in the day. That was his sort of big breakout movie. He did Jungle Book, the Disney remake. He also did the Lion King one, so they can't all be winners. But yeah, no, I feel like John Favreau probably had a spec script written for this when he was like 13. Uh, it's yeah, the whole thing is just like a love letter to Star Wars, and it's just it's really, it's the most Star Wars thing that I've seen and since Star Wars.
Like they're back again, yeah. But Grogu has stolen my heart. I am very close to go getting that doll on Amazon. I'm a grown woman with a doll. I'm just a woman with a doll. That's all.
It's no shame.
Thank you. All right. So first, it's the outlines.
So, yeah. And y'all can see that. I mean, the process of doing pancake art is, I think a lot of times people kind of overthink it. Well, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Like some of the first viral videos of pancake art that ever like graced the internet were with a completely different color method than you'll see what I'm using here. And when I started, I actually used this color method, but once we became like full time, it didn't really make sense because it was kind of limiting. But a lot of people's first experience of pancake art was with something called heat toning, where you would just use one color of batter, and then you would use the heat of the griddle itself to add contrast to that tone of batter. So sort of like, I mean, the idea isn't to burn the batter, but that's kind of, you would sort of burn the contrast into your lines and do it, like time it so that you could have all kinds of different contrast and shades and stuff. And there are some people that are really, really good at that. And like, I can still kind of do it. I haven't done it really in a long time. But our method, you might notice, we have colors in the batter itself. And so the colors we use is all gel colors, like the same sort of thing they put in cupcake icing. It's very versatile. The main thing you got to keep in mind is that no matter what color you put into this batter, if you cook it too hot, it all turns sort of the same shade of brown. So you lose your contrast. So rather than having a really hot griddle and timing the batter, which can be a really technically challenging thing, we actually cook the pancakes at a slightly cooler temperature. And as a result, you can get many more colors. You can take a lot longer on the designs you make. And so it ends up being a lot more like drawing traditionally than you might expect. Like I basically, when I'm doing a design, depending on how long I want to take on it, I usually will start with the outlines, and then I will just sort of color it in bit at a time. What I did with the light blue there, I'm just highlighting, and I've got shading and that sort of things, but I put down those outlines first, so I've got a framework to sort of follow along and fill in. And once I've got a highlight and a shade down, then I can just kind of fill in with a middle color like this green or something. It doesn't have to be perfectly identical to the color of, because honestly, Baby Yoda, Grogu is a little bit more of an aquamarine color, but I don't have the perfect color for that. And one of the things I've learned over the years is just that, like, it's not really about perfection. It's about contrast. It's about communication. And so as a result, you can actually, I could have used reds, I could have colored this in with any number of things. And as long as I get that contrast right and the general shapes right, it'll still read as what I'm trying to draw. So usually you'll see once I fill a pancake all the way in, I like to hit the back with a little extra batter to hold the whole thing together. I like to give it a border. But then as with pancake art, you always have this built-in magic trick, because kind of like with glass painting, you're sort of building up in reverse and you'll cover it up and then whoop, you flip it over and you reveal the final product. That's probably the most challenging part of the whole medium, because when you're drawing, you can actually see what the final product looks like as you make it the final product. With pancake art, sometimes you're kind of rolling the dice. So one of the things you have to learn over the years is like how not to accidentally make people cross-eyed.
Yeah, it's one of the few art mediums where it becomes less clear what you're doing the further you get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But with anything
So right now,
else, like
once I've finished, go ahead.
but with anything else, it's just like about really like mastering the material and knowing the material and all the little quirks about the batter and the heat and the connection between the two.
Absolutely. The I would say there's a couple things that probably the number one thing that I've found like as a technical skill that is, as far as I've experienced, really just a pancake art thing. And when we do classes and teach people, in person how to do what we do, one of the things I almost always end up emphasizing is this thing we call squeeze control, because all of the batter's a liquid, and all these bottles are squeeze bottles. And so one of the like sort of motor skills that's just embedded in my brain now after doing this so much is every time I grab a bottle and get ready to turn it over to start drawing, I squeeze a little bit of air out of it. Not a lot, just a little. And what that does is it creates suction. And that suction, I can sort of gently release my grip as I'm drawing to stop the batter from pouring. And that's how I get really nice line work. That's how I can get tapering and have a lot more control over what it is that I'm drawing, and I don't accidentally fill in zones weird. And that's sort of, I think, the key to pancake art fluency, as it were. But yeah, it's just like any other medium. There's certain rules and limitations imposed by what you're working with, and just the more you experience, the more you practice, the more you can figure out like, oh, you can, if you take your time and mix a whole lot of colors in advance, you can really actually start to approach, parity with painting, especially things like impressionism really lends itself well to pancake art as a medium, because it can be tricky to blend with pancake art, but you can do lots of like texture lines and build them up like that. So we'll see if we get into something like that in a couple minutes. This is almost ready to flip. I can tell because all the bubbles have popped, and the back of the pancake no longer looks like it has any wetness to it. It's got more of a matte texture. It's not shiny, meaning that it is probably, I can come through and start to do what we call carving. You might have noticed that I didn't use any non-stick spray. I don't use any butter or oil or anything like that. And so as a result, the final product is usually a little bit stuck. You have to carve it loose, but then once it loosens like so, that means it's ready to flip. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And there you go. There's Baby Yoda.
This is incredible.
Cutie.
This is incredible. You've captured the essence of Baby Yoda. Look at him. You captured movement, and there is the impression of light. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Dan from Dancakes, everyone.
Cha-cha.
All right. So on to our next pancake. What I want to do is throw it out to the crowds right now. As you build this pancake, those of you who are watching, go ahead and guess which work of art Dan from Dancakes will give us towards the end. And our third pancake, there's going to be a poll that's going to come up very soon. But I think our second pancake is going to be the one where you guys get to guess which one is happening, and then the third one is the one where we'll throw up a poll. So go ahead, attendees, and also in the chat, it looks like we're inviting everyone to also have some questions for Dan. I'm going to check out the chat right now. Let's take a look. Callie Pancakes is here. Hello, welcome, Callie Pancakes. It looks like we have, hello, Z, welcome. Let's see. Dan, people really
I'm not sure if y'all can see, but this is probably a dead giveaway.
Let's see.
See, Dan can make a unicorn technically, but we're all tied up with
these doggone fine art reproductions.
What famous artwork? Yeah. And then See, someone asked us to ping Dan's feed. I mean, if you want to follow any of our stuff, Dr. Dancake is our social media everywhere. So or dancakes.com has links to everything as well. I have no idea what this is, Dan.
Weird one, right?
Huh?
Weird one, right?
Yeah.
Not iconic in the slightest.
Oh, it's you and your obscure. You have any guesses yet? Oh, I got a guess. I'm not gonna say if you're wrong or you're right, Kelly Pancakes, but you're yeah.
So the reference I'm working with here, one of the things I like to emphasize anytime I'm introducing somebody to the medium of pancake art, and it's actually Dancake's company motto. It's printed on our griddle. Let me show it here. Mistakes are delicious. So,
so let me switch to the overhead here. Put it on the zoom and
there it is. Okay. So just so you can see, I'm not talking out my butt. Like, that is sort of my guiding principle for like any pancake art design I do, just because the medium of pancake batter can be really, really awkward in certain ways, right? Like you don't have nearly as much control over how it ultimately looks at the end of the day. You don't have nearly as much control over, like it's a liquid, so it likes to, like there's surface tension that likes to cause it to really sort of bunch together, and you get like weird.
I just realized the iPad was in the shot.
Oh, don't show the iPad, Ben. You're gonna
now everybody's gonna know what it is.
Everybody's gonna know what it is.
Oh man.
Oh man. Who are we? But I emphasize the mistakes are delicious philosophy just because, like, especially like I sort of learned this medium. You know, you don't go to school for it. You just kind of throw yourself into the fire and learn it from trial and error. And one of the main things I learned is that like perfection is a false ideal, especially with something as tricky to control as pancake batter. And to really make things you're satisfied with, you gotta sort of cut yourself loose from the expectation that it's gonna be a perfect reproduction of what you're working with. And you gotta sort of lean into the limitations of the medium, because they have their own sort of expressive qualities, right? Like that's one of the things that I sort of came to grips with a couple years into doing this professionally, was that like, yeah, maybe I can't make something that is perfectly, carbon copied what it would look like if it was done by a computer, but that's way less interesting than making something that only can look this way because it's a pancake. And so once I sort of gave myself that freedom, released myself from the expectation that it had to be this perfect, masterful reproduction of something, I had a lot more fun with it. And I ended up making art that I was way more like satisfied with. Like even though it wasn't a perfect reproduction, it was perfectly pancake art. And especially with paintings like what I'm doing here, it's mysterious. The strokes on a lot of like classical paintings are just as sort of expressive and loose, and you get a lot of wiggle room with how you choose to represent something. Because like, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out, oh, how many times did this artist make these strokes exactly like this? I'm just going to sort of look at the color zones and just do my best to approximate them and not get in my head too much about whether or not it's accurate perfectly or whatever, because that's not the point, right? The point is to have fun. The point is to make something that's kind of cool and pretty. And usually once you give yourself that freedom, you can make things you actually like. What are the odds? What a novel concept.
Absolutely. I love that
artist
question.
Who likes his own work?
The Tao of Dancakes. Got it.
The mantra.
I've heard people mention that as well, that that they're making their artwork for themselves and then kind of reaping the benefits of whoever has enjoyed it or whoever has responded or has felt some connection to it. So absolutely.
Mhm.
It's the material that changes, but it's definitely the feeling, that emotional response. Oh yeah.
It's one thing I tell a lot of people when they're making original art, whether it's music, I outside of Pancake art, like I'm a musician. I write songs and record stuff, and I play a lot of different instruments, but it can apply to anything else. Making comics, anything like that. It's like you have no idea what anybody else likes. You will no matter how long you've been doing something, you will never know what anybody else likes. For sure, you can guess, but and you might be right sometimes. But the only thing that you can always be 100% absolutely sure of, without a doubt, is, do you like it? And so when doing any sort of art, like I always say, is like, if you like it, then you're doing a good job. Like that's the only thing you can do. That's the only thing you can be sure of. Anything else is just guessing.
Absolutely. Dan, are you doing any other artwork besides with the batter?
Yeah, all of us here at Dancakes are pretty creative in general, and that's kind of how we stumbled into this bizarre circus act of a life. Like for my part, Ben and I are both musicians, and I'm also a game developer slash author. I mean, it's hard to really put myself in a box there, just because like the only label that's ever really resonated with me long term has been artist. I like to make stuff, and so there's lots of different things that I have we all have our irons in a lot of different fires, and it's definitely pancakes are really the only thing I find that I consistently like actually do, like visual art wise. Like, I mean, I do a little bit of like graphic design and stuff with regards to the other projects I'm working on, just out of necessity. Like, I'm working on a game and it needs a graphic design done, but it's not necessarily because I find it wildly expressive or something like that. But like once you take the brakes off and just sort of make whatever comes to mind, you end up being creative in a lot of different directions. Especially these days, I mean, it's so wonderful how much just like software, like there's so many different kinds of powerful software and tools that artists can use to like really express themselves, that like we've never had access to this level of just intuitive expression before. And so it's a really wonderful time to be an artist and have this many ways to express yourself, this many opportunities to try and find ways to sort of leverage your creativity, like with social media and all these different, there's so many different things out there that are making it possible to, even if you're not, a household name or whatever, like it's way easier to make a living doing art than it ever was in the past, I think. And that's a really beautiful thing.
And artists, they have to like just be on the move. They have to keep reinventing themselves and keep learning and what I think ends up happening, I think with a lot of conversations with artists, that they are sort of jack of all trades, and that their artwork has morphed into so many different other categories. I have a question. So you've got this griddle now, and do you have it on medium heat or high heat? And I see that you're like turning it.
That's a wonderful question. It's very sort of key to the whole pancake art process. Usually, especially when we're teaching people pancake art for the first time, or depending upon the technique, like Ben does this a little differently than I do. When we're teaching people for the first time, we tell them just keep the griddle off at the beginning, because it gives you more time to get fine lines, and you're not racing the clock, right? You could personally, I like to have a little bit of residual heat, and so like events like this where we're doing back to back to back actually works great for my preferred style, just because that residual heat, if I have a little bit of heat in the surface of the griddle as it's sort of cooling off, the first lines of the next pancake will set much faster. And so usually the first lines of any design I do are often the most important. They're like when I'm doing portraits, I start on the eyes. In this particular pancake, I start on the subject, like the central figure. And that's when those lines set, it gives you a little bit more control over how they look at the end. But it's also not that big a deal if your griddle's just cold and you're just careful with how you lay those lines down, because as Ben will tell you, you can actually if you take long enough, you can let those lines dry out and then cook them at the end of the process later and still have the same sort of control over the line work and stuff. So usually with our method, we will have the griddle cool or off. And then once we're done putting everything down, once we're done outlining and backing it and everything, that's when we'll turn it on. And we only cook at about medium heat. So traditionally, if you're just making pancakes to eat, you're going to cook it between 300 to 400 degrees. We don't cook any higher than 250. 250 is hot for us. Usually we actually, the Dancakes griddle here actually has the draw and the cook gauge on the little the thermostat here. Cook setting is between 200 and 250 degrees. So we try not to exceed that, just because, as I was saying before, no matter what color you put into your pancake batter, all kind of turns the same shade of brown at the end. So
yeah, low and slow. It's
slow.
It's like barbecue.
So
we're
while
almost
you're
done with this one.
While you're working on the edges on that one, there's some questions in the Q&A box. They'd like to know, the P family is here and they would like to know, are we eating the pancakes after?
Well, you can. You totally can. The stuff we're using for the colors and everything is completely food safe. We at Dancakes, we don't actually eat the pancakes we make that often. That's not to say we never do, but it's a day job, it gets old, that kind of thing. One thing we have found, though, I don't know if you can see on the wall behind me, is that you take all this time making these beautiful pancakes, we've started to preserve them and put them on walls. I'm kind of looking forward to the day when we can do have our pancake art in a museum somewhere, because
well, technically.
Oh, it's in the City Museum?
Yeah. It's actually, we have a bunch of our pieces hanging in the City Museum in St. Louis, which it is like, I don't know if anyone from on here is familiar with the City Museum in St. Louis. It's kind of a museum in a certain sense. There are
gigantic interactive sculpture.
Yeah, well, they have like a giant insect collection and some other stuff where they actually display museum-esque things, but for the most part, it's an old shoe factory they gutted and turned into a giant playground. Like they literally have a slide that goes from the 10th story down to the floor. They have a Ferris wheel on the roof. Like it's and they're constantly changing everything. The entire thing's a giant art project for engineers and stuff. It's pretty wacky.
To answer your question, though, yeah, we don't eat the pancakes that often. We're totally capable of it, but we preserve them just as often as we eat them. Yeah. So I'm ready to flip this one. You ready to see it?
Let's do this.
3, 2, 1.
Huzzah! We really need like some bells and whistles and trumpets in the backdrop. Let's work on that for next time.
Yeah, we've talked about getting a soundboard.
Yeah, soundboard.
Get some canned laughter in here, and that way somebody can laugh at our stupid jokes.
So I understand for the next pancake there was a vote.
Yes, we are launching the poll, ladies and gentlemen. The poll is going to come up to the screen momentarily. You are, look at that. That's beautiful, Dan. You are, by the reasonable crowds, going to vote on the next artwork, and your choices should appear on the screen now. They are either Van Gogh's Starry Night, a mummy lid that you can view at the Newark Museum of Art in Newark, New Jersey when you're free and available. We open up June 3rd. Or it's Andy Warhol's soup can. So make your pick now, and Dan, we're ready. Let's see. Okay, our audience, they are voting now. Let's see. And the responses will pop up now. All right, so 64%.
Got a winner.
Look at that.
All right, Starry Night. Starry Night it is.
Looks like It's a very beloved painting right there. Also, one that lends itself very well to pancake batter, because Van Gogh has those really like thick brush strokes. They're iconic. You can really emulate those with pancake batter in a way that is very satisfying in my experience. I've done this once or twice before, so I'm glad people kind of picked this one because I got experience.
Yeah, it's hatching,
what
right?
you're doing.
Just
A little
the
bit.
series of lines, the building up of many different lines in different
Mhm.
directions. It's perfect for this medium. Yeah.
You might. For this one, I like to outline the canvas sort of first, just to help me get the composition right, get the proportions of that big weird tree and all that stuff. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's probably the most difficult thing about pancake art, other than the squeeze control.
Proportions.
Yeah, because there are no guidelines here. There's no
No
grid.
sketching.
There's no sketching. It's all freehand, and whatever you put down is what it's going to be. So yeah, having that frame there to actually having something to give you an idea of proportion is helpful. Otherwise, you'll end up with a pancake the size of the griddle, or it'll be
Happens
too
a lot.
or it'll be too big where you're like, oh, I can't fit this part in because now I'm at the edge of the griddle, and you have to just kind of cut it off.
And so it
And
looks
or
like
make
you're
the proportions
working.
completely cartoonish.
So those in the audience, if you'd like to
What were
play
you
some
saying?
Jeopardy, what are the names? What is the name of the tree in Starry Night, that conical shape? What is the name of the tree? And so I'll leave it in the chat for you guys to make some guesses, or if you want to do a quick Google search.
The Google search.
Let's see.
I don't know the answer to that one.
I think I know it, but I don't want to spoil the fun.
There is a tree. Yep.
I was earlier, a couple months ago, I got to be a guest on a I don't know why this is just the not knowing things about pancake art made me think about this. I got to be a guest on a game show they are revitalizing called To Tell the Truth, and I was on it as like the way the game show works is that you have to like pretend. It's basically you and two people are imposters of you, and you have a weird job, and this celebrity panel has to try and guess who's the real weirdo, like who's the real pancake artist. And so they ask you all these questions, and you're supposed I can't lie, but I remember I accidentally stumped the judges because Jimmy Kimmel asked me what the difference between pancake batter and waffle batter was, and I was just like, dude, I don't know. He was like, oh,
This guy's an idiot.
that guy can't be the pancake artist. And I was like, I don't know. I literally don't know.
That was not in the script. Not fair. That was not. I was not prepared
in
for
the
that.
script.
Yes. All right. So it looks like we've got some responses in the chat. Lucy, you are correct. We have the cypress tree. Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Irene. Let's see. Who else?
Not to be mistaken for the Cypress Hill.
Of course. That would be another conversation.
Let's get those stars, because Starry Night. Well, that's the moon.
Does the batter have the same? Yeah. Let's see. Megan, does the batter have the same ingredients as regular pancake batter? Indeed, it does. The batter we're using is actually just add water pancake batter. You can make it from scratch if you want to, but we just use just add water stuff because it's simpler and easier to take with you on a plane. And then from there, we just add gel colors, which are the same things you would use for cake decorating or making colored macaroons or any of that type of stuff.
Well, we also we add erythritol, right?
Oh yeah, our secret ingredient. Yeah, one of the tricks that we figured out since we don't use any non-stick on our griddle, and our griddle is actually, and you can see the Dancakes logo there. This is actually our own griddle that's designed for pancake art. We worked with a company out of Kansas City called Select Brands that helped create this for us, and it has a surface that has a little bit of stick to it, and it's also polished smooth, so the pancakes come out really nice, and it has an even heating element. There's no cold spot in the center like most residential griddles, but there's still some problems. It still is a non-stick surface, and so what ends up happening is all these really thin lines that you see Dan putting down.
It's like if you're doing pancakes back to back, and so the griddle's staying hot the whole time.
Yeah, if the griddle has heat on it, and you have these really thin lines in there cooking, if they cook a little too much, what'll happen is they'll start to actually curl, and they'll start to come off the griddle. And then at that point, once you cover the pancake, all of those lines that have curled up off of the surface of the griddle, they will just be buried in the pancake, and you won't be able to see them. So you'll lose all that detail and stuff. And so what we discovered was that there's a sugar alcohol. It's a natural. It's derived from corn, but it's called erythritol, and the erythritol, xylitol, sorbitol, malitol. All of them are similar in this respect, even though they're sugar alcohols, so they're sweeteners. So like anytime you buy anything that's like no sugar added or sugar free, they probably have one of these in there. Erythritol being probably the most expensive, but also probably the best one because it doesn't have a lot of the negative after effects of that the other ones have, which anyone who's eaten too much sugar-free candy probably has found out the hard way.
Intimate knowledge of.
Yeah, erythritol doesn't do all that. It's actually, and so that's one of the reasons we use it. The other reason, it doesn't. So what that ends up doing is that it actually causes it to stick because it acts like sugar. It looks like sugar, it tastes like sugar, but it also acts like sugar in the fact that it makes it stick more. But then on top of that bonus, erythritol doesn't caramelize. It melts, but it doesn't burn, no matter how hot you get it. So it doesn't have any effect on the actual colors. Whereas if we did sugar, it would burn and then it would turn brown, and it would mess with the colors that we're trying to present. So we add erythritol to our batter, which is not necessary. It's just something that
if you're going to be doing them professionally and like back to back, then it helps.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it's just normal regular pancake batter, and that's what we did for years and years and years, up until recently when we discovered that we could improve it slightly just by adding a little bit of erythritol to it.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
Let's see. Like the audience is really loving this fusion of science and pancake art. We have a question from Sandra. Is any kind of griddle recommended, or are you pushing the electric griddle?
Any surface that gets hot can work. The cool thing about pancake art is that it is like pancakes in general are such a very simple, basic food stuff that you can get away. Like we've made pancake art in some really weird ways just out of necessity over the years. Like somebody wants us to use a specific surface because they're selling it or something like that. But what Ben was saying about like the griddle we're using is like we consulted with a company to make this the Cadillac of griddles specifically for pancake art. Most electric griddles will work just about this well, but there's a couple things that this has an advantage over those. Probably the main one, which I think Ben might have mentioned, is that this griddle has a heating element on the bottom edge or underneath it it actually doubles back. Which is like comes in here and it goes and it does sort of a zigzag across, which most residential griddles don't do that because there's no need for it, right? Because there's no real material need for them to be like evenly heated. Problem is, what we've found is that most residential griddles have a big cold spot in the center of them, and as a result, you'll have, if you draw a pancake in the center of that griddle.
I'm just gonna shove it in the frame so they can see.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's the proof. Proof's in the pudding. See how it doubles back like that? This little extra strip of metal right here,
Mhm.
like most manufacturers cut that out because it's like a bunch of extra money they don't want to spend on manufacturing 10,000 griddles.
And it'll still make pancakes just fine without it.
But because of that differential heat, it ends up creating this really inconsistent sort of. You can damage your pancake art. You can. There's a lot of problems that we had with that. So that's probably the biggest thing that this griddle does differently. The surface is also different. So if you want the best pancake art griddle, of course we're gonna push the Dancakes griddle. But it can be made with just about anything. Like as long as we've made it on skillets, we've made it on hot plates. But with anything you use, you're going to have certain limitations, certain things you'll have to learn. And that's why we always emphasize, again, mistakes are delicious, because the number one thing isn't the tool you're using. It's just like any professional musicians and stuff. Like they'll use beat up old crappy guitars. It has to do with your tenacity and your willingness to like learn from your mistakes and sort of master whatever you happen to be using. So yeah, the main thing is have fun with it, right?
Absolutely. It looks like we are we're on our last pancake, ladies and gentlemen. And so if there are any looming questions to put in the chat, please do so now. Let's take a look. There's questions
Trying my
about
best to.
some foreground and some background. So the foreground is sort of at the bottom of the artwork, and the background is typically at the top of the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
The background suggests distance.
Yeah, it's.
And then a lot of people
Megan
are.
asked,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Ben, go ahead.
So Megan had asked, when you do writing on it, do you need to write it backwards? And the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to write. Everything that you put down on the griddle is going to be mirrored. So you do have to write backwards if you want to, unless you want it to be backwards for some reason when you flip it. But so a lot of times what we'll do whenever we're make like you've probably noticed, but this Starry Night was mirrored beforehand. So Dan is doing it backwards from what it would normally be as he's drawing it, but then when he flips it, it'll be the correct way. And we do, we'll usually mirror portraits and stuff and things like that before we do them. Sometimes if I don't like to mirror. This is personal flavor because, like I said, we all do this a little bit differently. Especially during live events, if I'm doing like someone's face who's in front of me, I won't mirror it because that way, whenever they look at it, they see it how they see themselves in the mirror, where everything's flipped. So live I don't do that. But then if I'm doing it, if I'm doing a portrait of someone who's just, I'm doing somebody's portrait here in the studio and they're not here, I'm just doing their portrait, then I'll flip it. So it sort of depends. But yeah, everything is reversed.
Once I get to this point in the process, since I'm trying to, if I had hours to work on this, I could probably do a very, very high fidelity representation, and I've actually done that before. I think there's a video on our YouTube of me doing a Starry Night. It was one of the first pancakes we actually preserved. It's on my wall at home. The Impressionism art style lends itself very well to the medium if you have a lot of time. But since we're nearing the end of this, I'm just kind of filling it in. Like I said, mistakes are delicious. I think it'll read just fine. I think people will think it's just peachy once I finish filling this in.
No, you're getting a
And
lot of
sometimes that,
encouragement in the
hurry up and
chat.
rush.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, this is amazing.
Heck yeah. Okay.
Any special, are they special squeeze bottle tops? So the squeeze bottles that we're using, so we've got a couple different ones. We've got the ones with the black tops we have some that come with our griddle kit, and then we have others that we sell as well. They're 2-ounce squeeze bottles. They're like craft bottles that you can get a lot of places. You can get them on our website, but you can get them on Amazon too. And but then you got this bigger bottle here with that tip. That's actually something that'll come out. That is sort of the eventual follow up to the Dancakes pancake art kit. It's a patent pending bottle with modular tips and like a double chambered system and all this stuff. It's a little bit fancier, but as of right now, the only ones that exist are the prototypes that we've created here. But obviously, as you can see, like you can create pretty awesome art with just the other bottles too.
The thing that we really like about these bottles, or batter pens, as they might be more accurately called, is just the fine point, being able to have control over. Well, and the bottle tips that Ben's designed you can actually adjust their aperture. You can switch them out with different tips, so you can get different line weights. Which, I don't know, as an artist, that's awesome. Like you can have a bold line and a fine line, and use the same bottle for it. But the main thing that most of these bottles all have in common is just that they're very fine. And that's actually when we're teaching people, one of the first things we walk through is the mixing process, because pancake batter for pancake art, at least the pancake art that we make, the way we make it, we tend to mix the batter. It's very silky, it's very smooth. It is a little bit thinner than you might expect pancake batter to be, because a lot of times you'll have the thick pancake batter that just rises. You have these huge pancakes that rise, and they're so satisfying. Great if you're just making pancakes. But if you're making pancake art, very, very hard to control, very hard to get specific lines and intention embedded into your pancake. So we make the batter, we have to make it thin enough that it can fit through about a millimeter aperture on the tips of these bottles at the widest. You got to make sure that you mix the heck out of it, right? Like a lot of times recipes will tell you don't overmix your batter because it beats the gluten out of it or whatever.
Yeah.
It makes them so they don't rise as much. They stay pretty flat. But we have to, because we need to make sure there's no clumps. There's no unmixed powder in there, because those clumps will clog this like nobody's business. And then you're going to, ruin your wrist trying to get it out and ruin your art once it explodes. So a lot of things that, we were talking about the materiality earlier of the medium. Like, there's a lot of certain little considerations you have to do pancake art as well as you really want to. But having these bottles and having the batter that works in them, dream come true.
Yeah, one of the things too, with the one of the reasons why we overmix our batter so much is also because the batter will rise inside the bottles because it's bread, and so if you don't mix the batter enough, you'll fill up your bottles, and then 30 minutes later, all of a sudden, all of your bottles are just overflowing, and
big mess.
Yeah, and it just makes things difficult. And then also, then you get all these air bubbles and stuff inside of your batter in the bottles, and that makes things difficult too to try to get consistent line work and stuff. So yeah, it's counterintuitive to how you would normally make pancakes, where you don't want to overmix it, but with pancake art, you actually can't mix it enough. So a lot of times, what
just set the mixer and walk away.
Yeah, essentially, my general rule of thumb is get it to the approximate viscosity and smoothness that you want, and which is about the viscosity of ketchup, and then just put the mixer on high and just go for another 2 minutes, just moving the mixer around and just really mixing the living heck out of it.
All right, y'all ready for this final pancake?
We are.
Here we go.
Flip it. Flip it.
2, 1. And there you go.
It's fabulous. Awesome. Well, Dan. Awesome. Dan, thanks so much for creating these masterpieces. This was so much fun. The audience is still kind of raving and still in awe. We just want you to know that this was great. We hope to have you back. For those of you at home, we hope you enjoyed today's program. You may never look at pancakes the same way again. Community Days, these are presented to you by the Horizon Foundation for New Jersey. We hope that you enjoyed today's program, and we'll consider supporting the museum by making a donation or becoming a member. So check that out in the chat. While our paintings may be over, there's plenty of fun still to be had for Art Extravaganza at 2 p.m. coming up. Join us for Dressed Like a Work of Art with Ariel Adkins, and she's here to show us how she paints clothing to mimic famous works of art. So make sure to click the link in the chat and grab that free ticket. But we hope to see you there. And so it's bye-bye for now.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for having us, guys. It was a lot of fun. Now we're going to awkwardly fade to black.